This video demonstrates the recommended method to route and secure fiber or tubes in AFL's Apex Splice tray. Cable preparation lengths for Apex vary by cable and application. Refer to the written instructions or Apex cable length table located at aflglobal.com/Apex. The recommended tools for the Apex closure are basic cable tools and a can wrench, plus all locally required safety equipment. The Apex Splice tray can have all or some Splice modules pre-installed at the factory. The cover is easily removed by lifting one edge of the cover and working the side off. Place cover in a safe place until needed. There are several paths for routing fiber in addition to the outer fiber raceway. There are interim paths to facilitate clean slack management when splicing. If desired, one or more Splice modules may be removed to allow slack management in the Splice tray. Each Splice module can be used for multiple types of fiber. The maximum capacity of each Apex Splice module is single splice, 60 mm or 40 mm, 3 per layer, 18 per module. Spiderweb ribbon or ribbon splice, 2 per layer, 12 splices up to 144 fibers per module. Mechanical splices, 2 per layer, 12 per module. PLC, splitters, couplers, and WDM can also be used. To remove an unnecessary Splice module or for slack fiber storage in the field, simply disengage the two locking tabs on the back of the tray with a pair of shears and slide the Splice module to release it. Remove the module and store in a safe place. The Splice modules are universal to fit in any Apex tray location. When installing a Splice module, there is a correct orientation to follow with the locking tabs that must be in a position to engage. To install a Splice module, simply select the proper orientation for the locking tabs and set in tray. Slide to engage tabs. Make sure the Splice module is fully seated and secure. To install or reinstall Apex Splice trays, install in the mounting holes on the yoke. These should be installed sequentially if possible to prevent trapping a tray from being removed later. All trays must be filled from the bottom up. There can be no empty spaces between trays. Simply engage one side of the tray in the mounting hole and rotate it to engage in the second hole. Lift the tray and then release to its resting location. Release the Splice tray latch by depressing the locking tab and lowering the Splice tray. Repeat for next Splice tray. There are a variety of openings to secure fiber or tubes to the Apex tray and are designed to utilize the supplied tie wraps and secure any of the following. Use 2 tie wraps when securing tubing or loose tube. On loose tube, put a few wraps of electrical tape on the tube first to give the tie wrap more grip. When bringing ribbon to the tray, bring it up in the transition tube secured with 2 tie wraps or with AFL's foam retention secured with 2 tie wraps. Make sure tubing does not extend into the Apex Splice tray storage raceway. When using the Apex Splice tray, it is easier to pre-install the supplied tie wraps prior to installing tube or foam retention. If all Splice modules need to be completely populated, it is recommended to plan the fiber route and Splice counter direction from each end. This applies to loose tube single, flat matrix ribbon, or Spiderweb ribbon fiber to prevent violation of minimum bend radius when splicing in the outer chips. Start at the end splice and work toward the center. Once at the middle of the tray, route the remaining fibers from the opposite end of the routing, as shown. This eliminates a potential sharp bend radius at the end of the Splice module. In place of transition tube, Apex foam retention can be used for AFL's Spiderweb ribbon or flat ribbon retention. The foam retention supports up to 288 fibers of Spiderweb ribbon and up to 144 fibers of flat matrix ribbon. Simply slip the foam retention over the fiber and place on tray aligned with pre-installed tie wraps. Ensure all fibers are contained within foam and that the foam does not protrude under the splice tray cover. Engage both tie wraps, but do not cinch tight. The fibers should have resistance, but still adjust the final length in the tray. When installing Spiderweb ribbon in the apex tray, remove the binders from the slack loop in the tray. Tie these binders around the binder group on the tray side of the fiber retention for permanent binder identification. Binders should be tied with a half hitch or similar knot. Do not tighten to the point of attenuation of the fibers. Fibers may be routed in the outer raceway for 1 or 2 loops. Slack fibers can be stored in a tray with the splice module removed. Fiber may be routed between the splice modules if desired. Flat ribbon can be spliced as a traditional waterfall splice, or slack may be stored if desired. After splicing, the slack should be adjusted in the tray and the tie wraps tightened and trimmed. Do not tighten to the point of preventing movement in the fiber or cause attenuation. This is the same process for both foam retention and transition tube deployments. When splicing loose tube or single fiber fusion in Apex, secure the tubes at the splice tray with supplied tie wraps using 2 per tube. It is recommended to use a few wraps of electrical tape at the end of the tube to increase pull-out strength. It is critical that none of the tubes extend into the fiber pathway of the splice tray. When planning the splice in the tray, leave enough slack to splice from both ends to prevent bend radius violations. Pathways between the splice modules may be used if desired. Additional single fiber or ribbon devices can be installed in Apex, including couplers, splitters, PLC devices, and WDM devices. Both single fiber and ribbon fiber splicing can coexist in one splice tray. In all scenarios, fibers and splice sleeves are retained and in the proper location. Fiber retention has been secured, tubes do not extend into the fiber pathway, and fibers are not pinched. The Apex cover can be installed in either direction. Align cover between long tabs on one side and then snap in place. It is recommended to install or route fibers to trays one tray at a time to prevent trapping if a tray needs to be removed later. Trays must be filled from bottom up with no spaces left open. Once all trays have been installed, adjust the slack fiber under the yoke to prevent binding or excess fiber to snag.